Yes, here we go. The Monday Club. It is that time of the week. It's Tuesday. We used to do this all the time. It used to get delayed to a Tuesday. So it's been a wee while since we last mixed that up a wee bit. Hope everyone is doing well, and apologies we weren't on last night, but we are back tonight. So, always not lost. Jonathan, what's the haps? How are you?
I'm not bad, thanks, Russell. I'm not bad at all. I've had to put my glasses on tonight just because I've been in disbelief at the decision makings over the weekend there. I've had to put my specs on just to make sure I've seen them right, and I'm still at a loss to what John Beaton was up to, but I thought Terry covered it reasonably well on the post-match, even if he did like to go back to that red card quite a bit. He was giving you a tough time on post-match, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's an absolute consummate professional when he works with Phil, and he just basically is there to drive me up the wall when it's just me and him. But it was good. It was good. Yeah, a few things to talk about. Obviously, Celtic now challenging the S.F.A. on their use of VAR. We've got Abada going to America, Charlotte F.C. Don't know how much people have been paying attention to the old bus and everything that gets said on it. But I think I called that about 3-4 weeks ago in a TNF. He could be off to the MLS. Just have a wee listen back. You might hear it. Get everything. Get clocks right twice a day. And obviously Mark Lawwell as well. Jade Moffat says she needs the audio, Russell. I hope she doesn't mean the audio on the channel. I hope she's talking about how they made decisions with the ref. But yeah, Mark Lawwell leaving. That happened, remember, Friday, late afternoon. Phil and Liam did a great segment on it. I've not even mentioned it yet and had a chance to speak about it, so I'm sure we will get that covered. Also, all that good stuff means give us a like, give us a share. There's over 60 of you already in the chat. Big thanks to all of you who've joined on the bus already. If you want to become a member, honestly, so many of you have. It's $1.99 a month. It helps the channel massively. The likes of 420 somewhere. The likes of Alex. The likes of Stephen Murdoch. Jim C. Jim Dolan. They're all Danish. Ian McIntosh. There's another one. Look at that. Love it. They're everywhere. Phil McGinley. Always. But yeah, it's $1.99 a month, but our content remains completely free, so don't worry if you're not wanting to do it. Right, okay. All that's left is that time, even on a Tuesday.
Even on a Tuesday. Well, Russell, we are now in a crossroads in this title race. It looks as if it's going to be whoever trips the least will end up with the prize come the end of the season. Brother Beaton decided to put in a man of the match display in the Hearts versus Celtic game, but let's not forget our rivals stumbled and choked at home to a poor Motherwell team as well. The title race is beginning to heat up at the moment, and there is also all sorts of scrutiny beginning to be looked at across the board, especially when you look at what is going on with the media now. We have Brendan Rodgers in front of the S.F.A. potentially facing a ban, and when you look at it in that sense, you have to wonder if the siege mentality has now taken full effect at Celtic. Batten down the hatches over the next few weeks because Brendan has built his fortress. The siege is there. The question is, will the trophy be joining them in there come the end of the season? The answers are coming soon.
That Brendan Rodgers bit me. Brendan Rodgers. That was amazing. Oh, that was amazing. Okay. Hey, come on. Pull yourself there. You're an idiot. Just out of nowhere. Brendan Rodgers. Right, come on. Enough of that nonsense. Right.
It's a serious business.
I see. Yes,
business.
you know what I was going to say now. But right, come on. SF Celtic, fucking hell. Celtic are going to the S.F.A. That's what they're doing. They are now wanting to question how they use VAR. If they use VAR, if they just use VAR to frustrate Celtic or make decisions against Celtic. There was what you could describe at the weekend, Jonathan. The argument that the game was being, whether you agree with the decisions or not, one aspect to it, which I think is quite important, was the referee being refed by the referee or by VAR? And I think there's a big difference there. If you're missing clear and obvious ones and all that, it felt like there was, I don't know how you would describe it. It felt like there was more interfering, shall we say, or they seemed to be the tail was wagging the dog. Right? Now, it should be the other way around. VAR's there to assist the referee, not completely make mad decisions like that and then see if the referee agrees with them on it. And I think that's where a lot of the fans' frustration comes from. But we covered, as you rightfully say with Terry, I can't be bothered going into all the incidents one by one, unless you particularly want to have your say on it. I kind of already feel like I have. But what does Celtic gain by doing this? And what do you think they're looking to achieve? That's where I think they are right to flag it, and I think they're right to highlight it. But what the actual outcomes of it are, I'll be honest, I'm not so sure.
There's not going to be any sort of massive ramifications in terms of the S.F.A. are going to take any of this on board, whatever comes in the next few days out of it. What it is part of, though, is the Brendan Rodgers psychology that he is trying to build at the club just now. He has been building this for a while. I've called this a couple of times, what I believed he was trying to divert attention away from the players. He's done it again at the weekend. He's taken again all of the media flack coming out of that game. The headlines have not been about how Celtic responded to going down to 10 men, which, I felt Celtic could have done a lot more than they actually done in that game, even taking the decisions into account. I feel like if you're going to go down, you could have went down with a bit more fight. I don't think Celtic showed as much as they could have done, even in those circumstances. I'm not saying they should have won the game, but I would have liked to have seen a bit more from the team. It did have an air of inevitability once the red card happened that we were going to end up losing that game because the mentality of the players, for me, is not strong enough to take those types of setbacks. However, with what Brendan's done in his post-match, and it's fallen on his lap again, because, the game's been refereed away from the pitch, as he's quite correctly said, and these decisions were far from clear and obvious. The penalty is just never a penalty in a million years. Everybody with a brain cell knows that. And the red card, I think, if the red card's given on the pitch by the in-game referee, Don Robertson, then I think we probably don't have as many complaints about it, because at least you feel he was, at eye level. He's seen it play out in front of him. And I think, if that had happened, we'd have probably been a bit more accepting of it. The fact he's seen that there's been a bit of an innocuous, high boot, and he's deemed that it's not, endangering the player. It's just really, Yang's trying to pull out, and he felt it was worthy of a booking. He dealt with it. It wasn't like he'd missed it whatsoever, and he was in the best position to spot that, watching it, back. And I don't think he wanted to even send the guy off, which again goes back to what Terry was saying. However, when you look at all of that, that's then given Brendan Rodgers an open goal in his post-match, which he has gladly accepted to take the pressure off the team once again. And he's actually, for the first time that I can ever remember Brendan Rodgers doing, name-dropped the official and actually used the word incompetence in the same sentence. So you could tell he was properly having a dig at one specific individual in this moment. And he's one specific individual that a lot of Celtic fans already had no time for long before the weekend there. And he's one that's already aroused suspicion amongst many of us that he shouldn't be allowed near Celtic games. Now, Brendan never quite went as far as that. Other clubs have went as far as that, I'd like to point out, this season when it comes to referees. But I think when we look at what Brendan has done there, is now the news story and the narrative, Russell, over the next few days and probably into next week, it's going to be, is Brendan Rodgers going to be faced with a sanction? If he does get faced with a sanction, you can bet your bottom dollar Celtic will appeal it. and then it becomes a bit more of a circus again away from the players. And it's a fight Brendan Rodgers is happy to have. And I'll be honest with you, Russell, I think it's one that the fans are now beginning to get more unified behind the team because of things like this happening. There does feel a bit like there's a mounting evidence that things are just not meant to go Celtic's way this season. And whilst a lot of it has been down to us, make no mistake about it, the last couple of weeks, I think there is elements out there that are annoying fans that are happening from outside Celtic Park walls. Brendan Rodgers is tapping into that. And I wonder if it might end up playing into our favour come the end of the season, that Brendan ends up taking on all this additional flack to try and give the players more of an opportunity to focus on their performances without the spotlight being on them as much.
I think that's a brilliant, interesting, and interesting point that you make at the end. Has it unified the cause a bit in terms of fans getting more on side with everything? I think you're probably right. I think there has been an element of that. If the hymn on the sheet has to be that of F the S.F.A, then you'll be very few and far between Celtic fans that don't jump on board and start singing at the top of their voices. And maybe that is one of those things that, as an aftermath of this, and we're not saying we want decisions to go against us, we want some silly decisions to get made and things like this. Rodgers has every right to then try and capitalise on it. It's a bit self-serving as well. I think we need to be honest. Of course it is, because it deflects from his own shortcomings at the weekend in terms of what he did with the team. I think you were touching on that as well. But that's an interesting point I hadn't really thought of. I think there has been, over the past couple of weeks, as you rightfully point out as well, that Rodgers is trying to deflect a bit from the team. But interestingly, from the weekend going forward, there is a strong argument to say that it's the most united we've seen, maybe the fans going by the old social media and that. I mean, they always look very happy in the stands when they're all, everyone's singing together. But, on social media, it's usually an array of different opinions. Rodgers out, sack the board, love the board, Celtic go win the league, like all these different points. Where this time around, it does feel like there's been a lot of the happy clappers, if you want to call them. It feels like they're all very much F the S.F.A. The naysayers of what this season's been so far from Celtic, it feels like they're all on the F the S.F.A. right now bandwagon as well. And you can argue that's maybe the most unified we have seen the supporters this season, such has been the crazy nature of the campaign so far. I'd never thought of that. But if ever there was to be a silver lining, well, there was two, wasn't there? Because I think the point that me and Terry made, and I stand by it, is if you'd offered me at the start of the weekend, you'll finish the weekend still 2 points behind Rangers. They're at home to Motherwell, you're away at Hearts. I'd have took that every day of the week. So that's where we're at. But yeah, I mean, if that's what it takes to unify the fans and Brendan's sort of capitalised, fucks them, do you know what I mean? For that's just smart to do that. And I think there needs to be a more unified front this season between the Celtic and the fans. I don't blame the fans though for their outrage at times. A lot of the things that have occurred, the two windows glaringly sticking out, in particular. But I don't know. I think that is a positive to take from it. I'm glad you've pointed that out because I hadn't really thought of that. When it comes to the outcomes that they can dictate by doing this as well, I suppose it looks for once like Celtic PLC is defending basic Celtic things that we think they should be always doing and they don't do enough of. Mark was talking only a week or so about the fan outside for park and things like that, and where's the condemnation from the board? Whereas in this instance, they have got on board with where the Celtic fans actually seem to be standing. They seem to have kind of aligned themselves with it now as well, which again would be a bit of a breakthrough in what has been, I think, in terms of a campaign, as fragmented one as we could have imagined seeing, especially in the back of a treble.
Yeah, I mean, I think again there's an element of self-serving going on there with the board. They've seen this opportunity to deflect off their own shortcomings this season because, make no mistake about it, Celtic as a club have not been successful really in any element, any footballing department, any area of the club. Have all had their element of responsibility for the position we find ourselves in. However, I think when a game like that happens and you get so many poor decisions in a match, which is such high stakes getting towards the business end of the season, then it ultimately is always going to unify you, because there is one thing that's always going to unify the Celtic support, and that is trying to make sure that they at least stay better than their rivals across the city. And, I think there was obviously a massive element of frustration. You talk about obviously the 2-point deficit, and you're right. I think going into that weekend, we would have absolutely taken that. I don't think there's many Celtic fans that would have not taken that, because going to Tynecastle was always looking like being a difficult game on paper, and not one we could trust this Celtic team to successfully navigate, even if those decisions hadn't gone against us throughout the course of the match. But I think obviously the psychology as well of the fact Rangers played first and then dropped points then feeds into the game at Tynecastle even more and creates even more frustration amongst the supporters with how it's gone, because of the fact they had the chance to go back top that we weren't expecting to have. This felt like it could have ended up being a really pivotal weekend in the title race, and it might well turn out to be, even though neither side really made any gains whatsoever. But, it felt like it could have been a game-changing weekend if Celtic had went to Tynecastle and put on that statement win. With Rangers losing at Motherwell, you might have felt the momentum was beginning to shift back towards us. And as it is, the narrative coming out of that Brendan has successfully created, and, is in a large part true as well with how the game went, of course, is the fact that, the referees have cost us the opportunity to go back top of the league. And that's what he's going to, hang his hat on in terms of how that game played out. And a lot of fans have bought into that and do believe that was, the main reason behind it, and are willing to excuse what the performance was like after the red card, because I think the Celtic fans are realistic enough to know, Russell, that this Celtic team is nowhere near strong enough. This isn't like a Celtic team under Brendan the first time around that went down to 10 men at Ibrox and were able to regroup and find a way to win that match. You looked at that game, and I thought that, Yang potentially as well being the one getting sent off was, that probably the worst play we could have lost, because he was looking very bright the last couple of games he'd played up until that point. He'd started brightly at Tynecastle as well up until the red card. So losing him was always going to make it very difficult. I think Brendan has, realised when he's gone back and watched everything back and seen it all again, seen what the angles that, the VAR have had to try and see if he could make any sort of case. The fact he's came out so baffled, I don't think I've ever seen Rodgers like that. I don't think Rodgers has ever done an interview, and I think he started it pretty much all of them by saying he never has a go at referees. And he tries to be diplomatic about it as well, as much as he can be. He's not like Neil Lennon, who would have went in and, just went with a scattergun approach, and, he'd have been facing like a 12-match ban because he said, the referees are against us or whatever. He's done it in a way that he's almost mirroring what a lot of even the mainstream media have said after the game, that the referees are incompetent. And I think the interesting fact is, Russell, I don't know where you stand on this, but what do you think is going to happen with the S.F.A? Will the S.F.A be brave enough to try their arm and try and charge the manager? Because he did breach the rules with what he said, if we're going strictly by the book. However, we've already seen an example this season where one particular club have already said, no, this referee shouldn't be anywhere near our club. And there was not really any ramifications for that. And that was a hell of a lot more damning a statement to be putting out there than somebody saying this referee is incompetent and maybe needs some additional support before he's refereeing in these types of matches. But where do you see this going with the S.F.A? Do you think this is going to turn into a long, drawn-out battle, or are the S.F.A, do you think, going to let this one slide?
It's hard to tell. Really. I think a lot of it may lie with whether they decide to overturn Yang's red card or not. Because the reason for that being, if they do, that could appease, or certainly look like it's appeasing Brendan, and then keep him stun for a while, because you got what you wanted, you got your appeal done. That might, by default, then mean we don't get more callings out, as it were, of any sort of incompetency. Look, we resolved it straight away for you, and you got what you wanted. They might think that'll work. There could be the other angle, though, or the other avenue we go down, where Yang's red card doesn't get overturned, which I think is probably more likely.
I don't think it will return now. There's no way. Once they've gone to that, there's no way they're going to go back on it again. No chance.
I agree. But as I say, the only benefit to them doing that might be it nips this in the bud, because it would show, complete balance, if you like, or whatever. But if they don't overturn it, they turn down the appeal, then Brendan Rodgers in a couple of days' time is going to get a set of questions that are going to be all about refs, all about the standards, and he'll be asked what his thoughts are on the fact that when it's been reviewed, they still can't find the right decision, or in his mind, the right decision. And then you've got a situation that snowballs. Because if they haven't, in between that, charge Brendan Rodgers and hope that, this will go away, then we'll be in a interesting position to see. Oh, apparently people are coming in saying it has been rejected. Thank you, Pepsi Mac. Appreciate that. NM as well. That's what we thought.
Yeah.
That's what we thought would happen. But it leads to very interesting questions asked the manager again later this week, and where his position is on it, with emotion slightly subsided, whether he decides to go in for the jugular if he's not already charged. They're in a bit of a no-win situation now, because I think Brendan was quite quick to get across as well. I've got a hell of a lot of credit in the bank with stuff like this because it's not my way.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm calling it out, he was building up. Yeah, but the reason see, at the same time, he was acutely aware that it's not something he's done often, so he thought, let's just get it out there as well, that I don't do this. Adds a bit of credit to what you're saying. And secondly, he's hoping to keep that in mind when it comes to reviewing what he says, because he's not a repeat offender, if you like, I'll be very intrigued to see how he now bats away the next question the next couple of days. If they were to charge him, I think we already then know. I think the mood he's in right now, he will fight fire with fire. And I think those questions will be met with pretty severe rebuttals as to, why, that suspension was upheld and things. I think he'll be absolutely, he'll give it both barrels. If he isn't, it might be the first sign that, there's no point coming out swinging and fighting, do you know what I mean, where they didn't get us last time. I don't know. I think the S.F.A. will probably be sitting right now a bit unsure what to do, and they find themselves in a wee bit of unknown territory. But it'll play out as everything always
Wouldn't
does.
be like them, would it? Unsure of what to do. Sums them up pretty well, actually. Unsure of what to do, the S.F.A.
Unsure of what to do. I think that's very much where they are. Right, okay. But with one winger down, there could be another winger down, Jonathan. I was saying at the top of the show, my wee MLS prediction. Well, I said a league out with the same transfer windows as ours.
Yep.
Such as, I said to the judge, the MLS, and I think I maybe named another one as well. But we'll just claim it that I just meant the MLS one. So it sounds like I predicted it 3 or 4 weeks ago. Talking about like a combined or a total fee potentially amounting to £10 million. Isn't it amazing how highly Celtic value players that are in and out their team, and how little they value players that they tell you they bring in to improve the first team? Can't get my head around that.
Yeah, it's one, as I say, Celtic as a club for a long time. They're normally not too bad at getting good prices when they're selling, but when it comes to buying, they don't seem to think they should have to pay anywhere near the going rate for the players.
It's like switching a different hat on, Jonathan. It's like they put on a different hat. Because I just think there's so many examples. You look at littl Abada and go, how on earth? And I'm glad that we're getting 10 million, but that's what we've tried to say many a times on the show is as well, mate, that when it comes to valuations these days, Celtic fans need to seriously get a grip as well as to how much they think players cost in the real footballing world now. And stop panicking when we talk about players over £6 million. Stop panicking when we talk about £50,000 a week wages. This is the way football is. These are now fees that were yesteryear's money as well. 10 million for Abada is very good business for Celtic. But another example to me, the £10 million, if Charlotte F.C. are doing it in the MLS for one of our backup wingers, it only seems to be to me when we go out to improve our first team, we panic at spending that sort of money. And yet diddy clubs like Charlotte, for players of ours that aren't even, manager favourites or anything like that, we think then the 10 million becomes real. I just don't get that attitude. It really frustrates me. And I think, to be honest with you, it highlights it all over for me again, that they're basically just changing tact as and when it suits them. It's greed. It's not ignorance to it. It's not anything like that. It's just pure greed.
It's what the board's MO has been for a long time. And as I say, when you're looking at players like Abada, I think most people thought we probably wouldn't get close to 10 million. I certainly didn't think we would, given the circumstances as well, around his departure. It felt like he was going to be somebody they needed to ship out. And other clubs would have been acutely aware of that situation as well with Abada, and they were still willing to meet the asking price of the £10 million in a situation like that. So Celtic have obviously stood firm a little bit there, because I've got no doubt so it's probably been interest from other clubs, and there must have been a few of them that were trying to see if they could get him on the cheap behind the scenes that we don't know about. And Celtic have obviously stood their ground, which is all credit to them when it comes to selling. They are very good at selling most of the time. The problem they have is that when it comes into the buying market, they don't seem to have the same mentality that they need to actually pay the money to bring in the players that are going to take Celtic to the next level. It's not even to take Celtic to the next level all the time now. If you're talking about where we are at as a football club, money is just continuing to grow in footballing terms, and worldwide. And when you're looking at it from that perspective, players that are going to be naturally costing you £3 million nowadays were probably only worth, a couple of £1 million a few years ago. It's just the way the inflation ends up working. So, if Celtic are going to want to actually stay relevant and actually stay getting players that are going to make an influence for them both domestically and in Europe, then they need to start looking at spending more of that cash. Now, whether the departure of Mark Law will lead to that, I don't think so, personally. I think there's been rumours as to what he was actually working with, being about £10,000 per week. Ideally, somebody that's internationally experienced and people within the age of 17 to 23. I think stuff like that was doing the rounds, as to that was the kind of criteria he was scouting for. And, they were going to obviously need to be cheap deals. So again, that whole strategy for me needs to be ripped up a little bit. By all means, there is an argument to get in a couple of youth players in a summer transfer window, for example, and try and develop them on, and hopefully uncover a diamond in the rough. There's nothing wrong with trying that on one or two of them, but you cannot go into a window and make your biggest signing a project player that we've got no idea whether or not it's going to work out for them. You have to go for something a little bit more tried and trusted, particularly with where Celtic are now as a club. They didn't feel like they needed a lot of tweaks in the summer last year, and until Jota left, and then they just never really got going whatsoever in that window. And it's came back and it's costing us quite a bit. And then January comes along, and again we've got the opportunity to address that, and we don't take it. We don't take it whatsoever. And Abada is just an example of what the board are quite happy to accept going out, but it's not what they're happy to accept coming back when they've got to try and bring players in. And a large responsibility for where we're at does lie in recruitment, as much as people might like that or not. And a lot of people might like Brendan or don't like Brendan, might not like the players, might like the players. A lot of this does lie at the board's door as to where we actually find ourselves this season. Not everything, but certainly a large chunk of it. And they're proving that they are capable in certain aspects at that level, and they're able to get these types of fees. But I just don't understand what they're up to on the other side of this, because ultimately all they have done over the past 12 months is make Celtic a far weaker team. They're dropping points as a result of this much more regularly than they have done in a good few years since COVID. I would imagine this is probably the most dropped points we've had at this point in a season. And it's all of our own making, and it's something that needs to be addressed, particularly if they want to attract good quality managers to the club. Nobody's going to want to come to the club if you're just going to give them peanuts to play with, especially when they see there's 70 odd £million in the bank. So there's a lot of question marks there that need to be addressed. But if you're looking at it from a selling point of view, that's actually something they have got nailed down pretty well. It's just a pity they can't apply the same logic when it comes to buying players.
Well, let's look at that, because when it sounds like they're doing it well, I would love to know how much negotiation they did for example, for Jota last summer.
Mm-hmm.
How many people did they invite to the bidding table? Once a bid for Saudi came in and his head's maybe turned, and you can start going, right, okay, looks like he's going to be off-ski. I think they get one bid, Jonathan, that's of a certain amount for each player, and they just take it. I would be very intrigued to know. I think the one that they did do well was the Tierney one. They stuck in there. Tierney had 4 years left in his contract at that point in time, remember, though? And they stuck to
Celtic fan as well, so they probably knew he wouldn't ruffle their feathers as much. Yeah,
I think Arsenal wanted to pay that deal over 3-4 installments, whatever it is, and they wanted it kind of up front, and they got it. Fair enough. But I'm not convinced all the selling that they do is all that great either. They sold Carl Starfelt, who, whether you liked him, loathed him, had been a regular centre-back for Celtic for 2 years. Now, there's loads of stories about to get closer to his misses and all that shite. Fine. But you signed a contract, Carl. And if we sell you for real money, not the first offer that comes in. They sold him for the same money that they paid for him, essentially. And I don't see how that's good business. The Giakoumakis one, I mean, £3.5-4 million for Giakoumakis was poor business. Juranovic, not that he was ever my favourite player when he was at Celtic, I've got to be totally honest. £7.5 million. Peak of years coming into his career, going to one of the world's big 5 leagues. I think they were in the top 4 in Germany at the time. And £7.5 million drops in the ocean, this sort of money. So there's always other sides to it as well. I think you can hold them to a bit of scrutiny, even in the selling department. But certainly, when it comes down to bringing players in, they certainly seem to value players that they'll claim at the time is there to improve the squad, improve the first team. I struggle to see an investment on any individual over the last couple of years that really merits that. I mean, the guys that have came in and sort of either been there to improve the first team or certainly supplement it. You had Alistair Johnston, who replaced Juranovic, and he was a meagre £2.5-3 million. I think he's done okay. I thought he was really, really good under Ange this season. Not so good. And then you've got the other player who's in and out the first team now. Not every fan's favourite, but I think on the whole probably makes it into Brendan's best 11. Not that he has a best 11, according to him. And that would be Palmer. And I mean, that was a guy who came in for £3.5 million on the back of a 25 million sale. There's just no parity with it whatsoever. We don't expect £25 million players to be replaced with £25 million players. But as the fees you're receiving, if you are going to get record sales at that, I would expect the investment in the replacement to markedly go up as well. Doesn't guarantee you success, but I want that investment as well. And that frustrates me that Celtic still always find a way to value players at the club, whether they're in the team or not in the team, but yet don't value those that will potentially be joining the club. It's just a bone of contention for me. David Kelly comes in, and I know David's not a fan of Brendan whatsoever. I know many aren't. He's saying maybe these players would be a bit better under a better manager. I would say one of Rodgers' best traits in my experience I've had from being Celtic manager over the 2 spells, David, is he has made players better. But I think there's a body of evidence that players have improved under Brendan Rodgers far more than there is regressed until this season, of course. But I wonder how much that's got to do with one man giving a message while all the guys below him who were giving a different message last season now having to change their hat, if you like, and give out a new one. I never think that helps a manager. Ange might not have suffered the same thing, but Ange kind of had to build a new first team at the time as well, and I think he was the only man with a message at that point, such was the disarray we were in. So completely different set of circumstances. I think once it's something successful and then you bring in a different voice with a different style, I'm not quite sure there. And by the way, also on that, would these players be better I think when you look at Mark Lawwell's hasty exit before the end of this season, Celtic are now showing that they're not, and maybe even themselves, entirely happy with the recruitments that have been made. I think when you look at the subs at the weekend, see Frame coming on. I mean, Thiago Holm didn't even. I bet you forgot even about him, John. I bet you never even crossed your mind someone like Thiago Holm could come on, and he was a £3 million signing in the summer. I've got to be honest. I think Rodgers has many faults for this season, and I think he could have been a stronger voice in terms of recruitment as well. So yeah, I suppose he does deserve quite a bit of flack there. But in terms of the guys that's been identified and brought in by Celtic, it's just fucking mental to me that's the problem, is they've not had the quality. And as you rightfully said, Jonathan, our first team's got weaker this season, yet we brought in 9 players. That is fucking should be impossible. That should literally be one of the hardest things to do in a single transfer window, is sell 3, lose 1 out of your first team, bring in 9 and be far weaker. That is a masterclass in a clusterfuck. That is just well done, Celtic. Only you could do that. Completely embarrassing. Not good enough. And yes, we will see 10 million come in for Abada. That adds to, what's that, 67 sitting in the banks now. That takes you back up to £77 million sitting there. We need to be more aggressive with that there. Aggressive doesn't mean spend all the 77 million. I'm sick of going around the houses with that one as well. It's boring that you have to explain that. But I think when you see players leaving for that, Jonathan, that were in the periphery of the first team this year, I'd like to think guys that you're telling us are going to impact the first team, I'd like to see a wee bit more parity in the fees paid for those individuals as well.
Yeah, it just goes back to the ambition of the board. And the hilarious thing is, if they end up losing the league title this season, they'll probably be the reactive board that they are, and there'll probably be a lot more investment in the summer, and they'll be more determined than ever to actually get it right, because what they tend to do is they tend to get things more right when they're actually backs are against the wall in certain circumstances, and then when they're actually on to a winner and they can improve from a position of strength. And again, it's just something that has always been the mentality at this club, is that it never pushes on as much as it should when they are in strong positions. Now, this summer window coming up, whatever happens domestically, even if Celtic, for me, go on and manage to win the league and manage to even secure the Scottish Cup, which to me seems like a minor miracle if Celtic manage to pull off a League and Cup double with where they're at just now and how the season has played out. Even if they were to have that level of success, that squad's still going to need a lot of work come the summer. And I just wonder if we were to have that level of success over the next couple of months, and Brendan Rodgers and the team manage to find ways to get the wins in the big matches that are coming up, and we scrape over the line in the league and we manage to secure the cup, if that will be enough then for the board to turn around and think, well, job done. We don't need to do anything again. We're still in that position of strength. We've still got, a firm grip on the league title. We're still lording it over our rivals. They're obviously still not quite caught us up yet, so we can kind of sit back, relax, and, not have to worry about them for another few months. And then, if that would be the worst thing they could possibly do in this window. Whereas I think if it was to go the other way and Celtic were to lose this league title, not win the Scottish Cup, the level of investment I would envision, even at this point, that'll be a lot higher. They'll actually then go out and think, oh, fuck, the other side's actually a lot stronger than us. We need to now start investment. And it's just a very warped way of thinking. And you can get a perfect example of it. You go back to January. I'm convinced in January, if Celtic had lost that derby at Celtic Park, the Celtic board would have reacted stronger than they did. I think
it's a great point. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I think in some ways that, again, could end up actually being a blessing in disguise for Rangers losing that derby at Celtic Park, because, again, I think the board have then felt we're strong enough. We don't need to do too much work here to actually stay ahead of the pack in Scotland. And there's only so many times you can get away with that. There's only so many times. And this season, it's going to go to the wire as far as I'm concerned. And a large part of that is to do with the fact the board have gambled on their players being strong enough and the manager being strong enough to get over the line with a much poorer squad than before. For me, it does feel as if they went all
It's
out
a
for Brendan
miracle.
Rodgers. Yeah, I think so. I think it's ironically, it's almost for me gone full circle now, where the fact was Brendan was getting blamed for this, and now you're actually at a stage where if Brendan manages to pull off, especially the league, then this will end up being a title that most people will say that's Brendan Rodgers that's managed to win this title. If you go back and look at the back on Bustalgia in a
I
few years'
definitely
time,
will.
yeah, well, if we go back to Bustalgia in a few years' time on this, and it ends up Celtic get the better of Rangers in another 2 derbies and secure this title, when Phil goes and does the sort of highlights of that season, you're going to end up referring to these moments where Brendan Rodgers pulled the psychological mind games out, and you're going to turn around and say this is where Brendan Rodgers ended up earning his coin at Celtic, and he was the large factor that ended up winning this in spite of a board that refused to do anything to actually help him out. And in spite of having a pretty poor first team to choose from, and it's quite remarkable how that's all kind of turned around, because I don't know who else you can really lay the success and accolades at this point, Russell. If Celtic go on to win the league title, who is going to be seen as the hero of the feast? Who's it going to be? It's going to be Brendan, I think. I genuinely don't know who else it could be.
I think I was, I think I was saying that the other week. I said this will end up being an amazing twist of fate. Will turn into Brendan's title. Who knows? What did you make of Mark Lawwell's departure? I know we've been talking there about the recruitment side of things. Obviously, that news broke Friday. For me, it's a step in the right direction, and does it show as well that there really is no level they will not go to throw anyone under the bus, if you like. Even if it's family. They've basically, by doing it at this time as well, they've basically said the last 4 windows, in my opinion, have been shit. They'll probably argue they've not all been terrible. I think there have been 4 windows in a row that have been really poor. They're basically now saying, though, Mark Lawwell's your boy. Look at him. Look that way. Anyway, just don't look at us. Even Mark Lawwell isn't safe from the Celtic board deflecting attention from themselves. Is this a move that's been stimulated by the sack the board chants that were going on? Is this something they realised they had to make a decision? Is he the last, one of the later ones in, first ones out sort of thing? I hope, for the love of God, I just don't think it's possible, right? But I hope this decision has been made purely and utterly on merit, or in Mark Lawwell's case, lack of merit in terms of the job that's been done. To me, that's okay. I don't mind that. That's where Celtic should be, making big decisions. People are underperforming, you show them the door. There's no issue with that. I just get a feeling, and I can't help it, I just get a feeling that behind all this is sneaky behaviour of the highest order and an example being made, and to try and show us all this is why the recruitment wasn't as good. Just see now, we couldn't even get to the end of the season. Let my own son leave. It just feels a bit like fucking hell. He is under the bus and then some. It probably is his fault in terms of a lot of recruitment, but who appointed him? The people who appointed Mark Lawwell from the job he had are taking the utter piss. They didn't give the gift to sack him and make him look like enemy number one, whereas he probably did a job to the level you would have expected with someone so inexperienced in that sort of role. As I say, quite narcissistic though, isn't it? Just even before the end of the season, not just part of the clear out, they've just said, fuck it. We'll just make it all look like, we'll just make the whole thing look like it was his fault. Wow.
I think when it comes to the Celtic board, they have got firefighting in mind for how the season could play out, and that was them taking a preemptive strike should the worst happen over the next few weeks. And they've got to remember as well, Russell, that season ticket renewals will be out fairly soon as well. And then by making Mark Lawwell into the scapegoat for the season, they can then try to appease the season ticket holders that we've identified what went wrong this season, and we've got him out before they put the renewals out to the season ticket holders to try and get more of a buy-in from them. And it's all about self-preservation at the board, in my opinion, with this move at this moment in time in the season. And, as far as Mark Lowell goes, he's not been successful in that job. Make no mistake about it. It does feel like it was given to him on the basis that his surname was Lowell, which just shouldn't be happening. That's taking you back to the Kellys and the Whites era of Celtic, and that was an era, where Celtic fans were out en masse protesting against the board because it was a job for the boys, and Celtic can never end up in a place like that again. It needs to have the right people in the right departments. I think, they've done this only by default because they are trying to, do a lot of damage limitation for how this season could very well play out. And I wonder if it's almost the board throwing in the towel in some ways as to how the season might play out, because they're making this statement early rather than actually sticking with the full pack. In some ways, it's almost as if they don't fully believe Celtic will win this league title, and they've actually went and decided to act fast and act early to get somebody out so that there is, somebody there ahead, if you like, to be dangled as if they're the culprit for what's happened this season, when Mark Lowell, as much as he's had plenty of failings, is not solely responsible for where we find ourselves at this moment in time. And, whatever happens over the next couple of months, I don't think any Celtic fan's going to come round at the end of the season and say this fully falls on Mark Lowell if we end up not winning the league title. There's a lot of moving parts to what's gone wrong this season. I think, as I say, the Celtic board have had a look at it. They're not they were never going to get rid of Brendan in the middle of the season, especially when he's on a 3-year deal. I never thought that was likely unless the league got away from them. Brendan's, kept Celtic with a puncher's chance at it, albeit I think he's going to need to get a result at Ibrox and probably win at Celtic Park, as well as, a couple of the dodgy fixtures still to play that he's going to have to navigate in there as well. But I don't think we're ever going to get rid of Brendan. He was safe. The board members, they were never going to get rid of anybody on the board. Their jobs are safe as houses. They, laugh at the thought of one of them losing their job. So that was never likely to happen.
That's true.
And, I think by process of elimination, you're then in a situation where if we need to find a scapegoat, who can we use? What's been the biggest grumblings amongst the support? Oh, it's been about recruitment. But it's not just, in the head of recruitment, which I think is what they're hoping Celtic fans buy into. So they've thought, well, we'll get rid of the head of recruitment because that then deals with your recruitment issue. But the problem isn't the person that's in that role necessarily all the time. The problem is the wider strategy, because if the next person that comes in to fill that role has to work within the same parameters that Mark Lowell does, they're going to be a damn good recruitment coach to actually make this, work, or head of recruitment, whatever that job is. That's going to be very challenging if they're going to be faced with the same, parameters to deal with that the Celtic board have put on so many in the past, including Mark Lowell. And, it seems a bit of a poison chalice. I'll be interested to see who comes in there, whether, again, they go for another one that they're familiar with, or whether it does turn out to be somebody else further afield. Is this a call that you really think, and in some ways I think, should almost be a managerial decision? Should the manager have more of a say in who's head of recruitment, or should the manager just be taking full autonomy of that, old school?
Here's the funniest thing about it was, see if I thought Celtic had any sort of foresight and vision, right? I would say normally, in most football clubs, you would be saying that no, you want there to be a structure and how, who it is we're going to bring in, that they've been identified in advance, and we've got maybe a director of football. There's a philosophy at the club how we're going to play. But such as Celtic's stop-start nature in terms of progression, such as their pin the tail on the donkey when it comes to the signing approach, 1 in 5, 1 in 10. What we're sitting at right now, I think 1 of the last 21 have been first-team regulars, 2 out of the last 21, something like that. when you look at farcical records like that, then there could be a lot worse moves than just saying whoever's in charge at the time, just fucking give them the reins to the transfers, and that at least give you some sort of consistency for at least the 2 to 3 years that they're there, and then we just start again. That might not be the worst argument. People think it's dinosaur stuff, but the alternative is you've got, I think, Abada incompetent when it comes to football decisions. Football decisions should be left to football guys, and they appoint the family instead of football guys for football positions. So, yep, for me, I'd be happily if it was whatever manager we've decided to go for, them having the autonomy. It will never happen, but that's just my tuppence worth on it. Right, okay, it's that time. It is that time. 51 minutes on the clock. Here he comes, Phil McGinley. What's happening, Phil?
All right, guys. How you doing?
All right, Phil, how's it going?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad at all. Ready for another rousing game of Sutton Death. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty, just like in the real season. We're getting down to that, the home straight now. So there's only 4 points in it.
Well, let's hope there's no dodgy VAR calls tonight. Hopefully we don't need to go there.
Indeed.
Hopefully not. Yeah, I've had that as a thing, but I've not had to use VAR at all. I've joked about it before. I've even got the graphic for it, but I've never had to actually use it. So fingers crossed it stays that way. So
No,
it's inevitable happening tonight. Then it's inevitable.
Oh, inevitable indeed. But yeah, as I said, 4 points in it because Russell, you're on a bit of momentum here. I think you've won 2 in the bounce now. So yeah.
It feels like it, Phil. It feels like it. It feels like. The momentum's with me. I'm feeling cool and calm going into this title race. And if I don't win tonight, I'm blaming the S.F.A, so fuck it.
Oh, man. That's it. That's what you do. When in doubt, just blame the S.F.A, blame the referees. That's the best way to do it. But I'll get the aesthetics all set up, guys, and we will get ready to go again. So
comments off, Jonathan. Comments off.
Mine are already
Mine are off.
Ready to go.
What's the 4 in it right now, Phil?
4 in it. 4 point gap.
Yeah, 4 points is tricky.
Double what Brendan's got to overcome, Russell. It's a bigger challenge for you than what Brendan has.
And considering it's 1 point for a win as well, he's getting 3 for a win.
This could flip in 1 week. It could have flipped at the weekend.
Oh, Davey. So, as I said earlier on, Russell, you won the point the last game we played. So, do you wish to go first or second?
Second.
There it is, mate. I had a feeling you stick to that. Tradition this season, so we'll stick to it. And of course, if you're new to it, Russell is entitled to a clue by going second as well. That's why he sticks to going second. Okay. Cool.
Yes.
Right, so John, you're up first. So tonight's question is indeed a Celtic question. After last week, I changed it up a wee bit as a Celtic one. And there is 17 answers. And a regular contributor to my pool of questions, Dav Lynch, has given me this question.
Oh, yes, Dav.
He comes up with some good ones, him.
So you're going to have to think here and rack your memory because it's similar to a question we've done before. Because I previously did do one a while back about Celtic hat-trick scorers in this century. But 17 of those players have scored multiple hat-tricks for Celtic this century. So, 17 Celtic players from the year 2000 who have scored more than 1 hat-trick in competitive games for the club. Yeah. Ooh. So, okay. I say I've already done one about hat-trick scorers, but out of that list, and it was quite an extensive list, 17 of those players have gone on to score more than 1 hat-trick. So that's what you're looking for tonight, guys.
That should be quite good, I think. Okay, I'll start us off with the King of Kings, Henrik Larsson.
Yeah, obviously. Yes, indeed.
I will go with Jonathan's go-to answer, James Forrest.
Of course he's right, yes.
I didn't even have him written down yet. That was very naughty. Wow. Very naughty to take him off me. I will go for Moussa Dembele.
Yeah, Moussa Dembele is indeed a correct answer.
Gary Hooper.
Yeah, he's a correct answer as well. Gary Hooper. Yes, indeed.
I will go for Lee Griffiths.
Yeah, Lee Griffiths, of course. 3-2.
Scott Sinclair.
Scott Sinclair is indeed a correct answer, yes.
Oh, very good.
Good one.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, mate. No pressure.
I am going to go for Chris Sutton.
Chris Sutton, yeah, Sutton Death after all. He is correct. Doesn't come up as an answer too often, Chris Sutton, on a game that's named after him. He doesn't, but yeah, he's correct.
There's an obvious one to go for next.
I teed it up for you. Are you feeling brave?
But has he? Has he actually done that? Yeah, he will have. John Hartson.
Yeah, John Hartson's correct.
Yes!
Yeah, okay, 4 each. Last kick. Well, we might need some Sutton Death.
Okay, I've got a few ideas kicking about. Which one to pick? I'm going to go for Scott McDonald.
You would be correct. Scott McDonald is a correct answer. And that puts us to 5-4. Last kick, Russell.
I'll take my guess, Phil, or my clue, sorry, whatever it is.
Okay, your clue for one of the missing answers. The clue for one of the missing answers. Oh boy, this is you'll need to have seen this film. He shares his name with the lead character in Danny Dyer's film, The Football Factory.
Oh, fuck off.
I have no idea what that is either. That won't help me.
I didn't watch that shite. Okay, we'll go for the other one I had written down. Chris Commons.
Chris Commons is correct though, yes. Well done.
Yes!
So that keeps us at 5 apiece, but yeah. I mean, that clue is out there now in the open if you get a moment of epiphany, but I don't think these are.
Yeah, I think I maybe only... I don't even know if I've seen that film.
Oh, you're missing out.
Maybe once. A long time ago.
Right, so a maximum of 5 more guesses, or if you manage to get all of them, then we'll obviously have a tiebreaker question, which we haven't done in a while.
Oh. Yeah, let me just have a wee look, see if this one's been said. I don't think so. I'm going to go for Anthony Stokes.
And you'd be correct. Anthony Stokes is a correct answer.
Oh, shit!
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait. Could... Wait the new.
Mm-hmm.
Kyogo.
Oh, I've just written him down.
Yeah, Kyogo's correct. Yes,
indeed.
We always do that.
Yes, indeed. So that is 6 each, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 answers left in the pool. 5.
5 answers left.
Mm-hmm.
3 written down, but I'm not confident on any of them. I think all of them have scored a hat trick, but which one's going to be our best bet at a double hat trick? Going to go Odsonne Edouard.
Odsonne Edouard is correct. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, that's my
4 answers to go.
Now I am toiling. I really am struggling now. I know he got... It's just not... He couldn't have done it twice in the one season. Did he?
I think I know who you're thinking of. Because I think I've got him written down as well.
Magic Zaravsky?
I've got him written down.
That's a hell of a shout, but you're wrong in this one.
Yeah!
Zaravsky is not a correct answer.
He got 4 in the one game, and I thought, could he have got 3 in another?
Yeah,
amazingly not. He's not a correct answer, but it's a hell of a shout. But
it was a good game, that one, though, to be fair. I don't mind getting beat like that.
The 4 that you never got.
I have Venegar of Hesselink, Giacomakis, and McGeady. Any of them?
Giacomakis!
No!
Giacomakis is correct. McGeady has scored 1 hat trick. He's not scored multiple. And Venegar of Hesselink's a wrong answer. So Giacomakis would have been right. The other Greek, Georgios Samaras, was also correct.
Oh, Sammy, your favourite as well at one point.
Well, Giacomakis and Sammy are 2 of my favourites.
Shinsuke Nakamura is a correct answer as well. I remember him scoring a hat-trick against Dundee United, but I can't remember what the other one is, but apparently he scored multiples. There we go. And the one that you didn't get, the trickiest one, I think, out of the whole bunch, he was obviously the clue. If you've seen the film The Football Factory, Danny Dyer's character name is Tommy Johnson. In the film.
Oh my days.
Tommy Johnson.
I went against Tommy.
A cult favourite from the Martin O'Neill era. Scored the winner.
Tommy
won the league
Johnson got good for Tommy.
Yeah.
He's done well, hasn't he? Hasn't the boy done well?
The celebration he used to do, yes.
He was the man. Loved a bit of Tommy Johnson. That's frustrating, Giakoumakis, so I should have got that.
I thought that was who you were going for when you said Zarowski, to be honest.
That's what I thought you were.
was my next port of call.
I had Zarowski in my head because of that. I remember he scored the 4 and he did the wee finger point when he was running away, and I thought, do you know what? He got something like 22 goals and 24 starts that season.
I was just saying, yeah.
Do you remember?
That was a really good.
See the Giakoumakis ones. You remember, obviously, he played that whole second half of the season where we had to rely on him, and he scored back-to-back hat tricks. He scored against Dundee and Ross County, 2 home games back-to-back.
Fucking hell!
All first-time finishes, I do believe, as well, if I remember correctly.
First-time finishes. FDFs. Oh wow!
Yes, mate. Yes, indeed.
Wow. Oh well, that'll be that. Back to 5.
5 points, yes.
We're going to need to start extending the season again, Phil. I know we've extended it once already. We're going to start extending it again. I like 2-year competitions.
We forget Russell is the S.F.A. when it comes to Sutton Death. We just play by his rules. It only ends when he wants it to end.
I am the establishment when it comes to this, Jonathan, you could say. Right, anyway, that'll do us for Monday. Thanks so much to everyone who's been in the chat. It's been very lively as always. Healthy number of people on the bus. I think I might have forgot the wee ticker banner today. Anyway, who cares?
No, it was there. It was there.
It was there. Sorry.
It was. Aye.
Anyway, aye. On that note, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and we'll be back on Thursday. Keep your eyes on the board.